So it looks like everybody from the waiting room is there. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second webinar of 2021. Let's go straight into the opener, and then together with my partner today, Arne Benfeld, we'll do the introductions and talk about the topic. Kevin, please, when you're ready. Okay, and good. Thank you indeed. So welcome everybody. As I said earlier, this is our second webinar for 2021. I am here today together with product manager Arne Benfeld. Hi Arne, how are you doing?
Hello, Greg. I'm fine, and I would like to thank you and the audience to be part of the meeting today.
Very good. Could you, you've been part of the ficonTEC team lineup for a long time. Can you give a little, just one or two sentences about your background, how long you've been at ficonTEC and what your role is?
Yeah, I'm now with ficonTEC since 10 years, and I joined ficonTEC in January 2011 as a project manager. That I engaged to a product or to leading the project management team, and since 2.5 years now, I'm a product manager. I'm more or less the technical support of all the sales team, and I'm the connection between customers, sales, that's the technical customers, technical connection between customer sales, and of course operations. And this is my role at ficonTEC.
And you actually have a history going further back than that with companies like F300, is that correct?
Absolutely. In 2001, I was one of the first, probably the first customer from ficonTEC. Means I know ficonTEC nearly since 20 years now.
Okay. So on the one hand, we have your own 10-year anniversary,
Yep.
right?
Exactly.
And on the other hand, I think we should point out to the audience that you are probably one of a handful of people at ficonTEC who has probably the broadest, deepest overview of the products and of the systems and the capabilities of these systems that have been put together for different customers.
Maybe yes.
Lucky guy. So the topic for today is we're going to be looking at three different system approaches for the application of fiber assembly. This will cover the full gamut of application space from lab to fab, so the whole length and breadth of the product development workflow. We won't be contrasting, but we will be at least highlighting which of these systems is best suited for what type of development step or what type of environment, and we will individually go into a bit more detail for each of these on independent slides. As much as possible, as always, we're going to try and make this a dialogue. If there are questions in the chat, and let me open the chat so I can watch that. I recognize some of you from previous webinars. And if you do have any questions during the course of the webinar, please feel free to post that question in the chat, and we will do our best to answer it on time, or at the very latest, at the end of the webinar, or failing that, then after the webinar, we will try and reach out to you directly. Kevin, next slide, please. Okay, so as always, don't forget the giveaway. The things you see on the table in the studio in front of you in this picture are, well, we're actually dialing things up to a level this year because, of course, we're celebrating our 20th anniversary. So we're going to be handing out, so the German is Wundertüte, and the English is a lucky bag. We will put a small collection of small and not so small giveaways into a bag to the person who can answer this question correctly. Answers please into the chat. The question is, what significant online service was also founded 20 years ago this year? So as we highlighted last time, and as we'll be highlighting throughout the year, ficonTEC is celebrating 20 years in business. Covered this a number of times before. It's if you have a question, if you're looking for somebody to help you with your product workflow development, we probably have the answer more than anybody else. We are continuing to grow. Even last year in 2020, we saw some new records set. And as part of that growth process, we have, for example, a new global director of sales, service, and marketing. So this is somebody who is harmonizing and putting coherent thread and structure through each of those 3-4 different customer-facing departments within ficonTEC. His name is Augusto Mandelli. He has a long history in high-tech industry, working for National Instruments, for example, for a long time, and working for other companies since. He is proving to be a very useful and motivating partner and addition to the team, and we're all very much looking forward to continuing working in this direction. In terms of events, a couple of events that ficonTEC will be both exhibiting at virtually at the moment still, sadly, but also presenting at in the very near future. That is the Epic Photonics Plus event taking place next week, 17th and 18th of February. That event will take place between 1 and 6 p.m. CET time on those 2 days. And there will be a series of very interesting presentations and obviously people available over the networking tool. I think it should be a very interesting event. Spend the time, go along and take a look if you have the time. And of course, we are all facing a Digital Photonics West this year, whereas we would very much like to go there and share good times with the people we know at the real Photonics West. It is sadly not going to happen. So the Photonics West Digital Marketplace will be taking place over 6 days, so over the duration of the conference. That is Photonics West from the 6th of March until the 11th of March. Obviously, that's going to be logistically an interesting situation to handle, because we're going to be looking at people visiting the booth and trying to get in contact people in all different time zones around the globe. And I still need to work out how we're going to approach that challenge. And of course, continuing on into 2021, we are still very much open for business, and we are making a strong push forwards to improve and grow our footprint and our sales and service and support structure. Good, thank you, Kevin. Right on time. What are the goals of this webinar series? Some of you have heard this before. For those who have not, this is a series of short, let's call them bite-sized events, where we try to, let's say, re-engage directly with our audiences wherever they are around the world, either directly through the live webinar or subsequently via view on demand via our webpage. If you have the registration for the live webinars, well done. We have, excuse me, let me interrupt my flow here. We have an answer from Glenn George in the chat that Wikipedia was also launched in 2001. That is absolutely correct. That is the answer I was looking for. Glenn, we will be in touch. You will be the recipients of the first 2021 ficonTEC Lucky Bag this year. Let us know if you like it when it arrives. Continuing on with the webinar. The webinars are short, bite-sized. This means you can get back to work. They don't take up too much of your time. It is also for us an advantage. It is an agile format. We can up our game. We can change the topics. We can bring in different people. We can cover a lot more ground than just by having 1 2-hour webinar once every quarter or once every 6 months. What you will see and hear in this webinar, news and developments. We're hearing those right now. You will hear about products and technologies. In this webinar, you will, to a degree, hear about both. And of course, as much as possible, we will try to address questions with answers that come up in the chat during the course of the webinar, or we will get back to you as soon as we can afterwards. If you have any questions, any comments, please use the chat for feedback. Scheduling through 2021, again, these will be roughly 30 minutes, sometimes less, sometimes more. They are always at 3 p.m. CET. If you want to know the exact calendar, go to this website, ficonTEC.com/webinar/webinar. That is where you will find the most up-to-date list of webinar appointments, calendar events, and what topics they are likely to be. Not all topics have been assigned to a date yet. We're still working on that, simply because we're still in negotiations working out exactly what the content will be and whether it will be available on time. As much as possible, we want to present you with a complete package rather than something that's half-baked, but we will try to get that list updated and correct as soon as we can. Kevin. So we're now going to move into the main topic for today. We're looking at the issue of fiber assembly, and for those of you that are looking at fiber assembly issues, manufacturing production issues, or product development issues, this should be an interesting topic for you. We will be looking at the fiber line FL300 system, the custom line CL1500, and something that we are teasing as the fiber line F1600. We don't actually know yet what it's going to be called because, Anna, it's still very new, right?
Yes, it's absolutely new. And the funny thing, which I remember right now is, and when I looked for a system in 2001, and I looked exactly for a fiber aligning system, for a system which can connect fibers to each other. And maybe this was the born of the first F300.
Ah, okay. So like I said, your history actually goes much back further before ficonTEC, right? Thank you. So we're going to briefly illustrate where these three products are in our platform overview. This is the first time that we will be looking at or slightly comparing and contrasting all three different platforms in a single webinar. We will be looking at the F300, which is an entry-level platform. To a large extent, it is an open table system where people can freely work at it in an R&D environment. We'll come in a little while to more details about that. The CL1500 is a large format, let's call it all singing, all dancing capable system. And again, we'll come back to that in a moment with some more details. And the F1600, however that is finally housed, will be using our new next generation inline housing formats designed for high batch or inline manufacturing applications. Kevin, next slide, please. With this slide, we're showing you more or less the same information, but we are showing you what are the principal functions in general for each of these particular systems and where they fall into place and where they have cousins or similar systems for assembly or bonding or test and qualify tasks. Let me just leave that up there for a second or two so that the view on demand people can take it in as well. Okay, Kevin, next slide, please. So what are the basic functions for fiber assembly tasks? I think, Anna, what we're looking at here is we're looking at very general align and attach tasks, maybe with some test and qualify flavor thrown in depending on the system. For the F300, I think we're capable of both passive and active align and attach of single fiber to chips, fibers to fiber arrays and ribbons to dies or to picks, etc., etc. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. And not only this, even with much more functionalities, this system can be equipped with topside camera, downside camera, with some additional features as well.
Okay, so we can equip it with a complete machine vision system.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think an important point is that when you compare it to some of the higher level and more expensive systems that are available in ficonTEC, across the product line, or let's say the platform breadth that we offer, we don't actually offer any different levels of performance or achievability in terms of results.
That's
you can
correct.
do with the F300 the same as you can achieve with an F1200, for example.
Exactly, and everything what you learn with an F300 can easily transfer to larger systems like an CL1500 and other systems as well.
And I think if there is one difference, though, that would be the level of automation that can be built into the system.
Yeah, that's correct.
I will not go into a great deal of detail highlighting what the basic functions of these are, and that is simply because we have covered this ground already in previous webinars. So I don't want to bore some of the people who have seen this already. I recognize some names in the list. If you go to the assembly line and fiber line webinar, or the bond line and custom line, or even the passive and active alignment webinar that we put out in Q4 last year, and you can access these with your registration on the website, you will see that we have covered this ground extensively and sufficiently already. What we can say about the CL1500 compared to the F300 is that, and this is something we will highlight in a slide later, is that you can add many more features to the fiber alignment capability for that system, right?
That's correct. And of course, you already mentioned it. The degree of automation is much more functional at the CL1500. For example, the F300 usually will be loaded manually. That means the parts will be loaded manually on a chuck. Then the system will grip automatically the fiber and will do the fiber alignment or fiber array alignment completely automated. For the CL1500, for example, also the loading of the parts can be automated.
Okay. And the other thing that we can add to the CL1500 is a higher level of test and qualify functionality as well, I think, right?
Yes, that's correct. The main reason for that is that due to the housing, the environment inside the system is much more stable than with an open platform.
Okay. And we won't, so we'll talk about the F1600 or whatever we decide we're going to call that when we get towards the end of this webinar. For more information, you can look up the descriptions on the Machine Solutions webpage of our website. And of course, you will find some general overview information for fiber line and custom line in the PDFs that you can download from that site. By the way, the QR code here will take you to the webinar page so that you can view those webinars I suggested. Okay, Kevin, thank you. Thank you. So this is where we want to move into sort of a more of a discussion format about starting with the F300, and then we'll move to the CL1500. I guess these are the three things we want to cover and then see what arises out of that. Anna, what sort of popularity do we have for this format, for this entry-level platform?
It's a very popular format. The reason for this is that it's an open platform. You can easily configure it from one application to the other application. And what you see in the slide is a system with 2 6-axis motion and with a 3-axis motion in the back, which handles a dispenser and anything else. And this makes this platform so popular, especially for product development and process development.
You and I, we had a look at the numbers for the systems, for the number of systems of this format that's gone out alone as a fiber line, right? We have sister variants of the same system that go out in an assembly line format or in a bond line format. And if you have a look at those numbers, this is an incredibly popular system. I think it's fair to say the entry level moniker we use for this is actually a bit of a misnomer.
It's not only an entry level, it's also a level which can be easily used for small batch production. And what I see is that a lot of customers who just have such a system, they are requesting now fully automated production lines because they learned how to use our systems, how to use our software, and now they are going the next step in the degree of automation.
So it's an important enabler for a greater inclusion of ficonTEC hardware within somebody's production line, is what you're saying.
It's a kind of a door opener.
We also had a look at the types of organization that this system goes to, and again, that also indicates that the entry level moniker is not correct. We are looking at organizations, universities, research institutes, for example, that's taken this, and it goes all the way up to well, the names we can't mention in this webinar, but world-leading, groundbreaking organization in the areas of organizations, in the area of telecoms, inertial confinement, what am I talking about? That's fusion reactor technology. I mean, inertial navigation, excuse me.
You can find the system very often in contract manufacturing services. True,
we saw those in the list as well. And what that highlights is the system really covers from the lab to fab thing that we like to highlight about ficonTEC so often.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what types of application? Well, obviously we see a lot of this fiber. I imagine a lot of this goes into telecoms, datacom type of applications.
Sensors.
Right. I had mentioned previously as well the inertial, not confinements, the inertial navigation system, so gyroscopes, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And I think we're also seeing it in for co-packaging activities as well, right?
Yes.
Or at least it can be used as a tool for developing fiber connectors using co-packaging applications.
Yeah, and quite new is the application also for health applications.
Okay, so biophotonics,
Poly-photonic, yeah.
tools. Okay, good. I didn't know that. So next slide, please, Kevin. So if you like, if this is a paradigm change, this is right at the other end of our scale of platform in terms of the breadth and size of the system as a standalone system, of course. How popular is this format? Where does it go? What type of organization sees this?
It's not as popular as the F300. The reason is that this is a very big system. It's a much more heavy system, but that does not mean that we do not sell it. We sell it more to institutes, to universities, and to development centers, which has to be much more flexible in the kind of application. For example, HHI Fraunhofer does have such a system where up to 10 different processes are running without any changes inside the system. And this makes this system so popular in universities and institutes.
And we have a system with Becamus, for example, located in Israel, a contract manufacturer. And what do they do with that?
They do small batch production, beta production, alpha production for customers, for their customers. And from time to time, customers asking us, hey, do you have a partner who can do some small volume production on a flexible system? And then we will recommend, hey, go to Becamus and we will configure their system to your application.
Okay. And it even goes all the way up to, there's an organization in Canada, C2MI. They use it for basic development work in the direction of silicon photonics, right? We have ongoing contact with them, of course, and they use it to as part of their development support role to IBM, right?
Absolutely. And not to forget the flexibility of this system. This system can equip with a wafer table. That means that you can carry parts from a wafer to the chuck. Can be equipped with open systems that you can do some bonding tests or some bonding applications, and also some test equipment or test scenarios.
So effectively anything from the assembly, bond, fiber, test line, any of these modules can be put into the system, configured depending on the purchaser's needs, right? So
absolutely.
So we've okay, and what types of application? Well, let's go to the next slide. Then needs to be Kevin and not me. So what we want to illustrate here is where any of these systems might appear in your product development flow. So across the top, obviously we start with device design, the ideas for a device, what it needs to do. You move into prototyping, validation and testing, process development. And then when you decide it's going to be a product, then you have to work out how you're going to manufacture it. You need to have verification of the performance, and you need to go to packaging and integration. And wherever you see this highlighted in blue or green is where ficonTEC can effectively deliver a system to help you in that particular step within the product development flow process. We've highlighted in the same table where we can see the F300, the CL1500 being positioned. And I guess I have actually made a mistake here, because I should include on the right under batch production, I should also include the CL1500. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
And even in the production, you should also include the F300.
You mentioned that yourself earlier, right? That some people that we've been dealing with for a while have had this for R&D, and they decided they now want to take the same thing and insert it into their production line. Very good, thank you. Kevin, next slide, please. So coming back to the topic of let's call it a highlighted system that is multifunctional. You were talking about the Fraunhofer earlier. Can you tell us a little bit about what is exactly going on here with this product and how the CL1500 is being used?
So the CL1500 is used for all the applications what you see on the left side. On the left side, you see this polyphotonic board with some U-grooves where you clamp in some fibers. We can put the gain element, we can activate the gain element and align it actively to this polyphotonic board. We can put this filter into this small slit, and this is a very tricky process. I was involved into this polyphotonic process or project in 2005, 2007, something like that. And though this is also a very historical project, especially for me.
Okay, brings back interesting memories probably, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of application, we're looking at die to substrates, filter placements, so micro-optical element placements. Obviously, they need to be fixed, so they need to be bonded. Probably, I imagine those are done with UV cured epoxy or something. And are there any thermal placements and bonding steps in this system?
Yes. When the gain element will be soldered to the substrate, this is a thermal process, and there we typically use a laser soldering process.
Okay, if anybody wants to find out more information, there is a link to an article in the Laser Focus World Media Portal magazine at the bottom of the page. And of course, you can find out more via a blog entry on our webpage. So go to the go to the ficonTEC Insider webpage. We'll find our blog entries and a link to the Fraunhofer HHI. Or you can just Google Poly-photonics Polyboard Terrific Project Fraunhofer HHI, and you should come to more or less the same level of visibility that our blog offers. Good, thank you very much. So this is something we've teased in a previous webinar. We're going to show it in its full length, I think, here. This is something that is available as gated material. So you need to register to view it. Anna, you wanted to do a voiceover.
Yes, what you are seeing here is stripping and cleaving process. That means we will remove the coating from the fiber ribbon and then we cleave it. And the next step is directly the insertion of this stripped ribbon fiber into an empty MPO connector. And this is also be done completely automated. Maybe a while ago, maybe 2 years ago, something like this, nobody thought about, hey, this is something what can be automated. And now we are close to make a completely automated production line for this.
What's interesting to see here is that so this is the strip and cleaving is both a laser process, right?
Yeah. It's a CO2 laser process.
It's okay. Well, I wanted to say just infrared, but you've said CO2 now. But obviously, that's needed for the plastic materials that are used in the housing. And there's a very strong machine vision aspect to this process, of course, right?
Yes. And it's not only that we use the vision for the alignment of these parts, it can also be used for a vision inspection because you do have this color code at the ribbons, and this can be detected very well as well.
And I imagine you have to view the facet ends, the fiber ends.
Yeah.
And I think there's a very interesting point as well. This is a passive process, of course, right? This is not active alignment of the fiber into each of the channels. We've acquired via machine vision an image of the connector, right?
Yes.
And then you put some tension on the fibers and slide them under tension into their grooves until the connector is snapshot. Thank you, Kevin. Very good idea. Show it again. Anybody who's watching this webinar, you can go to the blog and look at this to your heart's content using your registration. So at this point, we will see, I think in a close-up, we will see the tension that's put onto the fibers as they are put into the...
You can see, yes, you saw it. how the fiber ribbon sliding into this MTMPO connector.
And this is an important step in co-packaging and also generally in a high volume manufacturing environment, is that it's not always the right way to go, but if a passive alignment can be achieved and achieves the results and the yield you're looking for, it can be an important step in achieving throughput.
And what also important to know is, in the video you see it only with a black MTMPO connector, but also transparent connectors can be inserted and can be managed with the system.
Okay, good. Then I think we've seen this enough times now. Thank you very much. So, and this is the highlight. This is the big teaser we wanted to bring.
Yes.
Anna, would you like to introduce what are the roots of this concept and where we want to go with it?
It came up a little bit with when we did this trials, this project with the CO2 laser, this strip and cleave project. We thought about, hey, this is something what we have to bring into market much more. And in the meantime, in the same time, some customer requested us, hey, are you able to automatize our process like the fiber ribbon insertion? And then we thought about this must be combined somehow. And then even with talking to the customer, the idea came up, hey, this is something which can be automated very easy, let me say. You have to have two systems. Here you see three F300 systems in a row. Probably two of them can be combined in an F1600, but the idea is that you pull in the fiber ribbon from a spool with a robot into the system, then you cut the length, then you do the strip and cleave and with a CO2 supported laser, and then you go directly into the next step, the insertion of the fiber into different connector types. This can be assembled, or this can be equipped very individual. You can do it with one connector, or you can do it with two connectors on both sides of the fibers. This can be equipped very individual for your application.
Yeah, that would be useful for co-packaging applications, of course, right?
Yes.
So what you're saying is, we haven't decided yet, and in no way are we hard and sure about how we want to house this system. We can do that flexibly over 1, 2, or even 3 systems, depending on what the needs are. And obviously what you do in a high volume manufacturing scenario is you want to break the process down into logical steps to maximize your throughput.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If I look at your workflow, your preparation workflow, am I looking at top, middle, bottom as the 3 systems?
Exactly.
So if I do that, I'm looking at least 2 different laser processes as well, right? So there's a strip and cleave. We've seen that in the video.
Yeah.
And we're also looking at cleaving the protrusions, I guess, making sure all the fibers come up to the same length, checking for damage.
Exactly. Typically, if you insert the ribbon fiber into an MTMPO connector, you insert it completely, that they come out on the opposite side. And this has to be cleaved as well to cleave the protrusion. And then you do have a visual inspection, and then you hand over everything to a polishing process.
And of course, if you look at the different steps here, there's an incredibly strong machine vision aspect to the various steps within this system as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, and of course, we're totally agnostic as to the type of connector that is actually then used in that system. Okay.
As I already mentioned, you can assemble some transparent connector types. You can connect some MT prisms, LT prisms, and everything what is in the mind of the customer.
Okay. Very good. I have a question that I'm going to deal with independently in a moment. Let me just round up the webinar. So the roundup is, Kevin, on to the next slide, please. So that's the end of the main topic. We're just going to have a couple of slides now highlighting how you can reach us, how ficonTEC can be useful to you. This slide, what's in it for you? What is in it for the potential customer? It's quite obvious we collaborate on internationally funded projects and initiatives that contribute into the ecosystem. So we don't just pull from the ecosystem, we give into that ecosystem as well. Through that, we establish and build our network of R&D institutes and partners with whom we work together with, so to contract manufacturers. And because of those 20 years we've been in business, we have a customer base spanning several different major high-tech technology areas, with including leaders across Europe, Asia, and North America. And we're up around 900 systems and counting, installed around the globe, operational and serviced. So if you have an issue, if you have a question, if you think you need help solving your problem, we probably have the solution more than anybody else. Kevin, next slide, please. If you want to find out more, go take a look at our other webinars. I've said this before, you will find some interesting topics amongst the webinars we've held so far. You can also go to our Vimeo channel, so just look for ficonTEC or Ficon Media on Vimeo. You will find assorted video shorts equally on the website, highlighting processes as much as possible. This is something we want to do rather than talking about what we do, just simply illustrate real processes that we have acquired and optimized over the years rather than showing animations, for example. Next slide, please. If you go to the website as well, then on the right, you can see all those buttons. They are links you will find to the different channels we use, to our blog, to Twitter, to LinkedIn, to Vimeo, YouTube, and of course to our locations around the globe. If you want to speak to anybody directly, look at the PDFs. PDFs will ever only be an overview document, simply because the technology is a moving target, and most of what we deliver is a custom system, and we can't put custom systems into a PDF comprehensively. So if you have a question, please get back in touch and ask. So lastly, you can find us around the globe at these locations. On our locations page on the website, you will find out how to be able to get in contact with us at those different locations. Kevin, next slide. And there, we are done. Thank you very much. So everybody else, thank you very much for your time. We hope that was useful to you, useful for you. If you have any questions, please get in touch. There are no other questions in the chat. Anna, thank you very much indeed. I hope that was not too taxing for you.
It was a pleasure for me being part of the team here.
Okay, good. And thank you to our viewers, are the most important component. Hopefully we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.